It's Katie Rose, straight up with a twist. What's up, humans? You're listening to Straight Up with a Twist. I'm your podcast host, Katie Rose, and today we're going to be talking about what's on TV and maybe a few other things. But first, guys, I was driving down the street today. I saw a guy with a license plate that just said pizza. Like pizza. Like 3 Z's. I just don't think people should put their names on their license plates or, any of those just weird things that you see all the time. Like a lot of these bumper stickers and vanity tags just draw attention in the wrong ways. Like you don't know if someone is honking at you because you've got a taillight out or your lights are on. Not that people figure that out quick enough anyways, but if someone's just honking in appreciation or maybe it's in protest. Like we don't know. And nowadays we know too much about people, right? With scammers on the rise. And you might not want to give us all of that information. Like maybe be as minimal as possible. Not here's 5 stick figures of my family members, pets, and local clubs I'm a part of, right? I go to this YMCA. I donate money. I have lots of money. Come rob me. I'm part of the Bay Hill golf community. Okay, anyways. But that pizza guy, yeah, he gets the kudos for the day. I'm like, who doesn't like pizza? Like, I was like, I like this guy. This guy has a sense of humor. Or maybe he owns a pizza company. Who knows? But pizza is delicious. I love jalapenos on my pizza sometimes, but I've noticed as I'm getting older, it's harder for me to handle the spicy foods. Like, my colon can only handle so much. And so can my squatty potty. I swear, if I don't have a squatty potty, which I feel like I've trained my body to need one now. It's like a phantom thing. I'm like, where is it? Plus, I'm short, so my legs just like go numb if I'm there for too long. But I do what I call the proper pooper. Yes, that's right, guys, the proper pooper. So if you don't have one and you're short like me, it's like you raise your toes up, like to compensate, to get in that more squatty position. But then to take the extra step, you can like cross your leg over top. And if you're doing like cross legs, like dainty cross legs. And then you put your hands on your knees. And then like if someone walks in on you, it just kind of looks like you're super cute and proper, right? So that's what I call the proper pooper, everybody. The proper pooper, in case you don't have a squatty potty. So I was shopping the other day. I went shopping as a human in person. Like, I don't do this anymore. Like, literally, I will give myself a shopping spree like once every 3 years. I actually get like anxiety going shopping because I always want to get a good deal. And then I'm just like sifting through everything. And then I get stressed that I'm sifting through everything. And then I try on, you go to the back and they're like, oh, you can only have 10 items. And I'm like, dude, just count the 50. So I can get this done. So I don't have to like put my regular clothes back on, come back out, get the stuff again. Like it's a hassle. It's a bit of a hassle. Just trying to be human again. And I don't want to succumb to the online shopping. And, every time it's like you see something, you click on it, immediately it's like, do you want 10% off? Last chance. I'm like, last chance my ass. Like, I haven't even seen the product yet. I don't know if I want 10% off. Let me look at your stuff first. Like, but I did. I bought a whole bunch of stuff and it was like nearly $300 something. But I got tons of stuff, guys, at TJ Maxx. It's like the only place I want to shop now. I like basically live in squirrel suits. So like I love a good jumper, like just put a little onesie on. Plus it's like flattering for my short figure. Like it makes me look taller. And I got some like Michael Kors jeans that are like amazing. I also got a pair of white jeans, which is very difficult. White jeans are difficult. Like, first of all, like, got to keep them clean, obviously. But, you want to like put your hand like through the material to make sure it's like not see-through, so that you're not seeing like your whole butt or underwear or whatever. So these were like just such a good buy. And I was just happy to get this like nice thick pair of white jeans. So TJ Maxx, guys, really Really found some good stuff there. Got some new sunglasses too, because I don't believe in buying like $150, $300 glasses. I'm like, they are made of plastic. I'm like, literally, you could go in the ocean and then they are gone forever. And there's a really cool looking fish out there with your glasses on. Like, you're going to go through them. So just go to TJ Maxx, get your Tommy Hilfiger, Jessica Simpson, Vera Wang sunglasses, and, for $10 and call it a day. And just get a few pairs, and it's great. And I get compliments on my sunglasses all the time because they're super cute. You can find stylish stuff for cheap, guys. Love a good bargain. Speaking of clothes, who watches Bridgerton? Yes, Bridgerton. Bridgerton is, it's like the romance novel, like the sexual romance novel that like you want in your life, like without having, like you don't have the time or the energy to like actually get the book and read it. Like that's Bridgerton for me. Like it's just steamy enough. Like in the beginning of like the McSteamy era of Grey's Anatomy, like there's a certain quality to it that is just like, I am diving into this. My husband couldn't care less. He's like, this is not my jam. I'm like, well, it's my jam, and I'm really enjoying it. I really enjoyed this second season, actually, even though like the main characters are, have moved on basically. But what's interesting to me is the clothing. First of all, it's cool to see this era and what they do with it. And there's, the blind casting, which I think is great. But I just like to see the wardrobe and the women bedecked in jewels and sky-high wigs, or their lavish parties with a festoon of flowers and vintage china, like I wonder how much of that is real and how much is CGI, because I did hear that a lot of, at least the like buildings, it's like they add in CGI like the floral, or they make the buildings taller. They did that with like Boardwalk Empire, with the entire boardwalk, things like that. It's pretty amazing what we can do with CGI now. But it's like a wedding every day on set there. I'm like, this must be such a fun set to work on. Like I want to be in the show. Like I want to be in the show. There's actually a few characters that remind me of friends of mine, and I can't not watch it and think of like a really close friend of mine. I'm like, that's her. But it's a cool show. It's also the, just like the decor of the walls, like the bright colors that they use, like how big the rooms would be. There's a fireplace in every room. I always think about like the architecture, like mid-century architects can't live up to, the Romanesque, Georgian, Queen Anne style, like that Baroque, the marble walls, and all of the rooms are these grand rooms that I imagine large families would come into. And of course, a lot of this is wealthy, white collar families, but all in all, a lot of the times the rooms were much larger. And then it was like, I guess the population just grew, and they're like, well, we got to fit all these people, so we're going to make tinier houses and smaller rooms, and we don't have these grand, lavish, high-ceiling, rooms anymore. But going to places like Europe that have the history, it's really cool to see these lavish properties, and architectures. But what is with the balcony baby doll style dresses on Bridgerton? I mean, they show that there is a French woman who makes these incredible designs on the show, and none of those designs are shown on any of the women at any time. I'm like, they bought one pattern and stuck with it. Like, and it's not always flattering. Like, I guess the whole thing is supposed to be, it's supposed to look sexy because it's like the top of your breasts like spill out the top of the dress. But like, you want to kind of see that like underneath part of your boob to see like the shape of your boob. Yeah, I don't know. I don't really like that pressed up, look. I think the corsets, oh my gosh, all of the undergarments that they have to wear, like can you imagine like they kind of showed it and it was hilarious, but like you're in a romantic scene and it's like, okay, well, let's take this off and this off. And it's literally takes them like 30 minutes to get undressed. I'm like, okay, well, we've kind of lost the the steaminess going on over here. Like the moment is gone by that point. But, I also laugh because they're always like, Lord this and Lord that. I mean, can you guys just be on a first name basis at this point? Like, you guys have known each other for months. Like, we don't need to be saying Lord Bridgerton. Like, just call him by his first name. Like, give me a break. But it just cracks me up. And I even prefer the way that they fight. Like, the way that they argue is like somehow more acceptable because they're being like super polite while they're like really angry at each other. And then it just makes it even more steamy because there's somehow like respect and love as they're screaming at each other. Maybe we should all learn to fight with our spouses that way. And, you know, a long time ago, you know, before cell phones and all of our technology, it's like, you know, you used to leave pissed and then like go to work or wherever you're going, ponder for a few hours, and then you come home calmed down. And then you're ready to have the talk. You know, now we're furiously texting, calling, Snapchatting, Marco Poloing. You know, we need to let these moments of anger like just dissipate and then let us think and then come back to it. You know, we're all victims of it. We do it on Facebook too. It's like, I'm mad right now. I'm having feelings right now and I need to post them right now. You know, we need to really let things simmer. That's something, especially with social media, I've been doing better with in letting things simmer. I can't promise you that for this podcast. I'll do my best though to maybe let it simmer before I decide to discuss the topic. But and the ring that Lord Bridgerton had for the girl, which I won't, spoiler alert, but like it was really cool. You know, it's like this vintage ring, you know, with these like tiny pearls on it. And I thought that was unique. You know, I really appreciate individualism and uniqueness. You know, I remember telling my husband when we were, you know, talking about getting married that I wanted a moissanite. So I wanted a moissanite over a diamond. And, you know, a lot of the reasons I wanted that was also because I didn't want money to be the reason why we were holding off, you know. But moissanites are the second hardest. Okay. They're just not marketed like diamonds are. You know, they're beautiful. There are natural moissanites, but it's actually more rare because they were discovered in pieces of meteorites that fell to the earth. But they were found in nature. I mean, they do more now, of course, they're synthetic, but you can make synthetic diamonds too, synthetic emeralds, you know, making them in the lab. They're still using the same natural process. They're just doing it in a lab instead of having the earth do it, you know. They are rare. There's different variations like colorless, yellow, green, you know, and they're beautiful. They really are beautiful. And they actually kind of sparkle a little bit more than diamonds, but they're made up of silicon carbide. So it's like a byproduct of carbon and silicone, but whether it's manufactured or not. But, you know, it's just, they're scarcely found in nature anymore. And I just thought they were super cool, but he ended up getting me a diamond because he's like, no, my woman deserves a diamond, which I thought was super sweet. Lobsters are like diamonds, right? They're only popular because of commercial marketing. Everyone feels like pressured, you know, like a diamond, you know, coal under pressure creates a diamond. But sand under pressure creates glass. So what makes one more valuable than the other? Okay. I mean, the only pressure anyone's feeling is on the marriage. Am I right? Okay. But if you have found your lobster, I'm very, very happy for you. But truthfully, lobsters are plentiful. You know, they're the roaches of the sea, and they actually used to give it to slaves as their dinner because they were so plentiful. They're like, here's a stupid lobster. Take one of these, slave. You know, and now today it's like expensive and a delicacy. And I'm like, really? Yeah, that is fun fact. Fun fact, everybody. You know what is not a fun fact? And okay, so I was watching... We're going to move on to the next show, people. Euphoria. Oh, my penis. I mean, if you have not seen this show, it is going to blow your mind. I'm like, what? It's HBO Max, guys. HBO Max. I know that any celebrity, like if you are in a like celebrity relationship and you are an actor and you get that phone call and HBO wants you, like the first conversation you're having is with your spouse and being like, hey, HBO just called me. Like, do you want me to do this show, babe? Yeah, no, HBO is off the table, right? And she was like, so Zendaya is the lead in it. And she must have written in her contract because she does not, you know, show her body, which I think is great. You know, if I've kind of always said the same thing about myself as an actor, if I were to do roles on TV, like you couldn't pay me enough, like especially if you're starting out, like you don't want that to be like, oh, she's the actor that shows everything in the very beginning, you know? And in the beginning of one of the episodes, she was like, fact, everyone watches porn. Like, not fact. You can't just say fact for the unknown. Like, so that part kind of frustrated me. And this show is not like a step up from Bridgerton just because they show stuff, like your private parts and all of those things. But it's actually a really rough show. I'm like, are there schools where all of the kids are like this? I'm like, oh my goodness. Like, it's kind of terrifying. Like, I mean, it's a lot to do with drugs and just different sexual activities, and it gives you a glimpse into this other reality. And I think it's interesting. I think the show, it just shows you all of the things that can go wrong in the worst of ways, and then just throws them all in the same circle of humans, which not everybody is going to have that same dramatic dynamics all the time. But the acting really is well done. The second season is more dramatic. It's like this experience, like, I mean, like theatrical, like it's dramatic. And even the way they film it is theatrical. So you can appreciate it in another angle, but it is a hard watch, but good. Like I said, it's hard to find the redeeming qualities, but it's so honest, it's uncomfortable. And I think that's okay. I think that's okay to see, you know, how low a person can go in their lives and how down in the dumps it can be. And it's also seeing how people are affected by drugs and by these emotions and by social media and just the life around us and how quickly it can spiral out. And, you know, just the way that Zendaya performs her role, she does a really good job at a lot of the symptoms or the emotional breakdowns that people who are going through withdrawal or fighting with their family or their loved ones goes through, and, you know, saying things that you regret. So the acting overall is great, but it is a difficult watch. And they're trying to, you know, after, you know, release the bacon, Kevin Bacon was like, release the bacon or whatever. And people were fighting for it to be equal, right? You know, if we're going to show as, you know, many of the private parts of a woman, we should show just as many of men, which I applaud that. That is fine. But, you know, and then it kind of naturalizes it, you know, it makes it normal, you know, and so it normalizes it. Naturalizes? I don't know what I just said. But Euphoria is meant to show the dark sides of life, and it's inclusive and it's interesting, and the acting is truthfully incredible. And some of these are new actors as well. But I kind of wanted to transition into another movie that just came out that got a lot of controversy, which was Turning Red. And for me, I'm just going to share like what my view was, because I don't know that it was necessarily for the kids of today, because I think it was written by the kids of my generation, the Oregon Trail generation. But it took me back. It took me back to the days that, you know, my brothers would make fun of me when I was on my period. And do you guys remember Animaniacs? And there was this little segment called Katie Kaboom. Well, yeah, they were like, Katie Kaboom. And they would call me that every month. And she would turn into a monster like the Hulk once a month. And I think, you know, like, we shouldn't label people with anxiety and depression. I didn't see that at all. And I feel like people were saying that, like, just because someone is stressed or depressed or anxious doesn't mean they have these real conditions. You know, we all get flooded with emotions at times. And she was a very confident and smart kid, overwhelmed with doing way too many school projects and helping at home. And while cultural, it reminded me of my childhood. It was set in, you know, like the early, you know, 2000s, the 90s, kids who grew up with boy bands and Tamagotchis and Nano Pets. And, you know, back then we helped our families with things, and parents were more out of touch. I mean, I would just run outside all day and play with my brothers, and then, okay, see you at home, you know, and climb on the walls and jump in trees and get all muddy. And, you know, technology is such a big part of kids' lives today that they're not really having the conversations like we used to back then that would actually help with our mental health with our friends. And it might not be relevant to kids today, but it was totally relevant to me, and also normalized her issues and pointed out that, you know, genetics can be passed down, but that doesn't mean we are doomed. You know, family will be there for you even if you scratch your mom's face. And as far as friends go, yeah, we would do anything. all kids, bartered in school or would sell lollipops and pencils and drawings and were little entrepreneurs. And I used to draw like Darkwing Duck and like sell it for 10 cents. And people are like, oh, I love this drawing. I brought it home. Like I did anything I could to convince my mom to let me and my two best friends go to the Backstreet Boys concert. Like I was like, I have to go. I will save all of my pennies. And I did. And I was on the news for it. It was real cute. And I was like, I'm on TV, and we posted pictures and drew pictures of the boys we liked all the time. People would kiss the posters of their favorite boy band person. We were changing into teenagers, and sometimes, yes, friends were unforgiving. Really, they were harsh on you. They didn't use their texting fingers. They used their voice, and sometimes they were mean. But like they showed, which I feel like people are forgetting, the good friends, they will always come back and they will bring you back into the group, and I liked that it showed open dialogue between the friends, quality time, not just texting and getting mad at someone for a social media post or something. Like I actually did hang out with my friends on the roof. Like so many of my girlfriends growing up, we would just sit on the roof, stare at the stars, or even in the broad daylight, have a drink or, pretend to smoke a candy cigarette, like stupid things. And you're discovering each other in a more organic and real way. You're learning to read people's body language. And I feel like people are losing that skill. Like they're not understanding, each other's body language. One thing I didn't like was that she kept slapping herself. I will admit to that. That was a little aggressive. And I think that maybe they should have made, if they didn't make it PG-13, then maybe they should have, because it is a little bit advanced in understanding for a younger generation who might not be there yet. But I also understand that when I was a kid, I watched older things. I watched certain things that I didn't understand then, but it didn't like mess me up. I just didn't really know what I was watching, and then I moved on with life, So there's different perspectives out there. That's kind of a short synopsis of my opinion on it, but I really enjoyed it. I really liked it. As far as West Side Story goes, I couldn't believe that they, changed Who Sang Somewhere, but it actually, I love how they, tied her in. I'm trying to like be, evasive when I'm speaking, and I'm talking in code, but in case there's any spoilers, I'm doing my best. But, I'm trying to talk in code. But I liked that they changed it. Like, we already know the big belty song, and the acting was good, and it brought me into the role. And it somehow made it more tragic, just with the change in climate in our country. And it really brought me to those welling up emotions. And so I thought they did a good job of it. And also, I don't know if he had a callback, but on Jimmy Fallon, they were talking about it, and Shawn Mendes was on the show. And he was talking about how he might have been almost up for the role of the lead in West Side Story. And I thought, oh my gosh, he would have been fantastic. Like, not that the other guy didn't like do a good job, but he wasn't like, a professional singer where like Shawn Mendes can sing. Although that might not have been the timbre that they were going for, since he is a high tenor. But all in all, the dancing was so fantastic. And I just thought it was a great movie. So, yep, West Side Story for the win. That was a really good one. But I also think it's interesting, like, the way that people get on social media and they talk about these movies that come out like as if they are like the main critic, like they are the journalists and they work for the New York Times and like what they say goes, like, and I think it's also interesting how I feel like, how weak is your personality that you allow someone else's opinion to dictate what you watch, like we can't just, we have to formulate our own opinions and be our own humans, and so I think it's interesting. I would see someone post about Turning Red, and a friend of theirs commented and said, oh, well, I'm glad you told me. Now I'm not going to watch it, and I won't let my kids watch it. And I was like, really? Like, be your own person, guys. I just really think people, I guess if that's the way you want to live your life, is letting other people control it, then if that's what makes you happy. And if you watch the show This Is Us, which I've been through every season, and that show, yes, it can be very down and emotional, and sometimes you're like, calm down, people, like, okay, the big three is going to have some more drama to, fight about or whatever. So, and my love Bethany's character. She's probably my favorite character in the whole show. I'm like, yes, girl, say it how it is. And this last season, it's been emotional, and I like what they're doing with Mandy Moore's character, and I think that the makeup artists do a really great job as well. But there was this one scene, and I cannot figure out where it is. I literally spent an hour the other day trying to find it, but I remember that there was a scene, like they did make us think that, Randall and Bethany were going to break up at one point. But there's this one scene, and I cannot find it, but it's old Randall, and he like walks into this building. And I think like his kids are like, okay, bye, Dad. Mom's over there, like as if they split up. And then they never came back to it. Unless I'm missing an episode and they like wrapped it up and they're like, no, just kidding. They're staying together, which I know they kind of did that. But I cannot specifically find this one scene where it's older Randall. I'm like, what would be the point of showing older Randall? Because yes, I feel like they teased them breaking up when they were younger and living in Philadelphia. So really confusing. I'm like, where's this episode? I'm like, did they delete it from the archives? I have no idea. But if you are watching, I'm not going to do any spoilers, but unpopular, maybe not unpopular opinion. I don't like Kate's character. I don't. I think she's mean, and I think she's selfish, and I think she's inconsiderate. At times. And sometimes I'm like, oh my gosh, like your husband is being so nice to you. And I'm like, and you just can't see it. He's trying his hardest to please you all the time. I don't know. I also get her perspective on things. I truly do. And I will say in this recent episode that I will now be drinking Vespers, and I have now purchased the ingredients to make some delicious Vespers at home, which I think is funny because James Bond is actually the one who brought those to light, but he always just says martini, and it's actually a Vesper. So in the older James Bonds, he does describe it, and he's like, this is how I want you to make it for me, but anyways, now Mandy Moore is the one who's making it popular, or This Is Us. Woo woo. So really enjoyed it, of course. I always have my tissues handy because I just get into it. I'm like, okay, it's time to sit down with a box of tissues. Like, I'm making myself go through this torment to start crying. Who am I crushing on right now on television? They're Jack Houston. Jack Houston. People don't really know him, but he was on Boardwalk Empire. And he had half of a face, and I fell in love with this guy. His acting was fantastic. He was the one who like talked like this because, he was like in the war and like half his face got shut off and he like wore a mask or whatever. And then he was recently in the movie with Lady Gaga and with Adam Driver. And he didn't even have a big role in it, but his presence, people's presence, like that's like a good actor, when they just take your attention while you're watching it. And I mean, he's not hard on the eyes, he's very handsome. He's up there with my Dwayne The Rock Johnsons and Ryan Reynolds and all of the other guys I'm in love with. I see, that's the thing. I don't do the porn thing. I just like think about celebrities. That's my mental cheating, I guess. I don't know. Whatever. We'll talk about that stuff another day. And actually, Jack Houston, he's got different looks. Like he can clean up real well, but he also has this kind of like rocker, stringy hair thing, like very, like Johnny Depp. Like Johnny Depp. Guys, have you been watching The Trial? This is the first trial I've watched since Casey Anthony, truthfully. I mean, it is quite interesting. And I would be happy to meet up with my girlfriends over a cocktail and talk about this trial because, oh my goodness. Like, first of all, he's 49. I mean, he looks, I mean, he's been doing drugs, guys. Don't do drugs. Don't do drugs. The videos, the actual videos, and then just like the voice memos, I guess, that they're recording on their phones. I mean, I gotta say, guys, I have Nest cameras in my house. We had to turn off our living room one. And I also have voice memo. And in my marriage, there have been times where we recorded. And I can honestly say, because I thought, he's not hearing me. He doesn't know he does this. I must record it. I don't think a person is ever going to hear it. Like, I really think you would have to go to a therapist because they're not going to hear it the way that you hear it. They're always going to defend themselves. And like the fact that they did this for so long and they have so much air quote evidence of these videos, it's like, you knew that this marriage was failing. And as, Johnny Depp has been saying, he's like, I tried to get away. I tried to get away. And I understand. I am a human being. I understand that you can get to a boiling point and you don't necessarily lose your mind, but you want to talk so bad, and it's different personalities, right? And this is just a solid case of these people were not meant to be together. There is a large age gap. Like, even though she said they had wine over, like they would talk about like poetry and different books. I'm like, how educated was she at 21, 22 years old? That I'm like, are you sure she wasn't just yes-anding you? Like, me too. I also like that poet. Like, I don't even know how much in common could they possibly have had. But, he made some mistakes and left his marriage, and, this is the price that you're paying now, and nobody knows, but they should have known better to end it sooner. And it's tough, right? Because we're not there. We're not, if we were to actually be a fly on the wall in everybody's homes, you would see that, people fight, people yell, right? And things happen. And I'm not demeaning emotional abuse because it is a real thing, but you need to acknowledge and just leave the relationship, which is what they did. But then to defamate his character, which is why we're here, is a whole nother thing, right? You can't just say, oh yeah, he did this. And then of course the tabloids don't help. Like, she said on her testimony that he was over top of me, beating down on me. And she's like showing fists. And I'm like, well, where was that? Where were those photos? Because the photos that you showed were not of the face of someone sitting on top of you and beating you. Like, what did Johnny Depp have? Like, are his hands made of feathers? Like, did he lose all of his fingers when you threw the vodka bottle at him? I'm not even sure. One thing that I noticed, and I'm wondering if it's going to circle back, but they went over a text message. I can't remember if it was the text message was with Elton John or not, but they were asking him, like, what did you mean by this text? Because he said something like, and I'm not going to quote this right, but something like, I might as well cut off my left finger like I did my right. And he's like, oh, it was just like, oh, like whatever, like I'm a guitar player. And he like tried to explain it, but I'm like, but why were you saying it as if you cut off your own finger? But I'm pretty sure she's not denying the fact that she threw a bottle at him, and that's what led him to the hospital. And of course, when you're in a tumultuous relationship like that and such a abusive, verbally and emotionally, you're going to maybe protect that person in the beginning, and then they're going to question you later. Why would you protect her? Why didn't you say she is the reason you lost your finger? Because love is weird. Love makes you do crazy things, right? And that's what they were finding. It's just that love made them do crazy things, and they were not a match, and they're moving on. But like, don't make up stuff. Can we not make up stuff? And like, to be fair, that video of him like on the airplane, humming and everything. That's not good. He probably couldn't remember things. And she said, oh, he doesn't remember things sometimes. That's what drugs will do. But then it's the other things like, oh, he kicked her, well, where are the witnesses that were on the airplane? Where are those witnesses that like, when I was here, he did this, and then I did listen to the recording, she said, oh, he put a cigarette out on me. And basically she ordered him to sit on the couch, and like either the ash or like the cigarette like swiped her arm, and she's like, you just burnt me. But she was fine in the video, in the recording. It's these exaggerations that are, not that are damning for her, so I just don't see that how she's going to come ahead of this. Like, maybe they'll come to a better agreement financially. I hope for the best for both of them, that they both get help, and that Johnny is on the mend, and that he sees that drugs are bad, and that much alcohol is bad. But these exaggerations are a little bit ridiculous, and it's just been interesting. And it's really tough, too, because the judges had to yell at the courtroom and be like, if you guys laugh, during this, I will have you removed from court. Because, anybody who is local, you can sign up, you can come in, you can watch the trial, and people are doing that. And for them, it's entertainment. They're literally entertainers on the witness stand, and it's hard because Johnny is who he is. He's a bit sarcastic. He's got a sense of humor, and it's funny. And it's hard, like, in a court, it's like they try to tell you to basically just state the facts, like remove your emotion or your sarcasm. It's difficult when you're an actor and you've got these personality traits. But I will say, what is terribly annoying, and like, I don't know if it's the drugs or whatever, I'm like, Johnny, spit it out already. Like, good Lord, at least when Amber Heard was up there, she's talking real fast, and I'm like, great, let's move on. It takes forever for Johnny to get a word out of his mouth. I'm like, come on. But anyways, if you're watching it, I'm watching it. Let's go have a drink and talk about it. It's just interesting. Okay, and now on to Batman. So I was really disappointed in this. I saw some people post about it, and they're like, oh, it's so great. Like, I thought he looked great in the costume, and he had some nice dynamics, but overall, I didn't like Robert Pattinson's job, and I also didn't like Zoe Kravitz. I felt like Zoe kept changing her character, and they also didn't really establish the Bruce Wayne character. Like, I was like, with the whole movie, I'm like, where is Bruce Wayne? Because that's not Bruce Wayne. Like, just the few moments that he was Bruce Wayne, like, they had this gothic, like, his stringy hair across, along his face. Like, he didn't have that poise and that millionaire quality, where everyone's like, oh, look, there's, Bruce Wayne. Like, he played it almost like a hermit. And I felt like I was watching a student film. Like, even Jeffrey Wright's lines were so obviously scripted, and it was like, setting up the plot so overtly that it just was too on the nose for me. And it kind of ruined it for me, because I was like, okay, next up, this is what's going to happen. Let's follow the clues. Like, it wasn't mysterious enough. I just felt like the writing lacked, and it was a 3-hour movie. So you're just pulling these teeth throughout the whole thing. And I felt like Batman's character was boring. I felt like Zoe Kravitz was just being 3 different characters in one. They didn't really give her much of a backstory or an explanation into her character. It was just kind of like, yeah, I'm Catwoman. And maybe there's something between her and Batman, but she doesn't really care. Sometimes she's really innocuous, and then sometimes she's really sexual. It was just confusing, and I didn't care for the storyline, so like, it wasn't memorable whatsoever. So that's my short opinion on Batman. I think that it could have been better, and it could have gotten people hyped up for more DC movies. And now it's time for What's the Twist? To distort or misrepresent the meaning of an unexpected development of events. Between abortion rights and mass shootings, there's been a lot of events going on. We do need to be better as a nation and coalesce, right? We're supposed to have balance. That's why we have 2 sides, right? What is a Republican viewpoint? Somebody told me the other day, well, your view is Republican. I'm like, why do we keep doing this? Why do we have to label things? Like, I don't care if you have a gun. But when a crisis, like a mass shooting or, pandemic is going on, we need to take action. It's not personal. I can't speak for all Democrats, but we don't necessarily care if you go hunting or have a gun for protection. But there is a lack of responsibility and a lack of regulations involving guns, and mass shootings are real issues. And we can't just keep ignoring bad things that are happening in the world because all you can think about is yourself and your precious gun. There were 201 mass shootings this year already. It just feels like when there is a crisis and it affects hundreds of thousands of people, that the right party tends to turn a blind eye because, quite frankly, it doesn't directly affect them. You have to look at statistics and deaths in the world. London police officers don't even have guns, right? And it's just like regulating abortion qualifications. Fine, right? That could be a conversation, but don't turn the clock back to poverty and wire hangers, with adjustment to our laws and to men's responsibilities as well. I know we can get there, but the harsh decisions help no one. Let God determine someone's fate, because our justice system still falsely accuses and lets murderers out before lesser crimes. So let's work on what actually needs to be worked on rather than someone's personal choices. Like, you don't want the government stepping in, right? But then you're asking the government to control things. It doesn't sound like you want freedom. It sounds like you want to control things when you want them controlled, right? It's called bigotry, racism. My body, my choice on masks and jabs, but not abortion. You say, well, abortion is killing, but giving someone COVID who dies from it is also killing. And it's also willful, but without care. You want to put whatever you want in your body, that's fine. But to ensnare Jamaicans for smoking pot into the criminal justice system, illegalize it so it's criminal, but if government sets boundaries on an unvaccinated person, you're up in arms. And we're still dealing with gentrification and homelessness. Your wants are not freedoms. The silent majority is against the minority, and it's racist. And it's thoughts that an older generation was, in my opinion, kind of indoctrinated with, and I've seen it, and I'm not saying all people, but, and it continues to spread. And that is the nasty virus that is all over the world. That is what is killing us. That is a worse virus than this pandemic that science has been trying to help dissipate. And if you don't believe in any kind of science, then we definitely don't see eye to eye. But there's just two different types of people. There are people that will focus on the negative for the rest of their lives, and they will just be angry at the world, and they are after them, and it's all a conspiracy. And then there's the people that are hopeful and wanting change and to look towards the future, and to the people who are trying to change it and to be helpful. So it's just a choice on how you want to live your life on a daily basis. All right, humans, coalesce with someone that you love, talk to a stranger, because it's funny how complete strangers can have familiar souls. Thanks for listening. This has been Katie Rose, served straight up with a twist.